CHAPTER VIII of From Sunrise Land, Letters from Japan, by Amy Carmichael. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Recording by Expatriate in Bangor, Maine. CHAPTER VIII. Torches, Thoughts, and a Typhoon. O Lord, that I could waste my life for others, with no ends of my own, that I could pour myself into my brothers, and live for them alone. Such was the life Thou livest, self‐abjuring, Thine own pains never easing, our burdens bearing, our just doom enduring, a life without self‐pleasing. Faber. Yokohama, Matsuye, October 1st. We had a pretty little journey up the lake to Matsuye. The rice is ripening for its second harvest, and the setting sun shone on sheets of gold on either side as we entered the narrower waters. When we reached the bridge, the short twilight had darkened, and the upper lake was lighted with hundreds of torchlights where the fishermen in their sampans and quaint one-masted junks were out for a night's work. When bedtime comes in hotel life, they give you a candle encased in a shade, wherein it abides in faintness and peace until morning. These torches with their wild flare were out in the open where rain might fall or storm blow roughly, out in the dark, out with the fishermen. Then we thought and prayed together over this, asking that we might be God's torches, far from the easy places, far from all care for mere comfort or safety, kept from getting inside soft shades, unless at the word of the King, kept from settling down to life's least. And that is as possible here as at home. Why do home people pedestal missionaries so? We need praying for instead, that the fire may ever be burning, for manifold are the devil's devices to quietly water it out. So we prayed together, M. San and I, and some fine verses, whose I know not, rang through me as we waited watching the moving lights upon the water. Full long our feet the flowery ways of peace have trod, content with creed and garb and phrase. A harder path in earlier days led up to God. Too cheaply truths once purchased dear are made our own. Too long the world has smiled to hear our boast of full corn in the ear by others sown, to see us stir the martyr fires of long ago, and wrap our satisfied desires in the singed mantles that our sires have dropped below. Oh let the cross our worthies bore on us be laid, profession's quiet sleep be o'er, in action's earnest scale once more our faith be weighed. To suffer well is well to serve, stint not nor stay. The years have never dropped their sand on mortal issues vast and grand as ours to-day. Oh, small shall seem all sacrifice and pain and loss, when God shall wipe the weeping eyes, for suffering gives the victor's prize, the crown for cross. How you would have enjoyed the meeting to‐night, if one may use such a word. It was packed. It, strictly speaking, consisting of the large open front, the broad roadway, and surrounding vicinity. There were a number of men and lads. Perhaps a soul was among them, a Paul to be. All through they listened well, making none of the usual noise and confusion. If those who spoke and we who prayed were in the spirit, work has been done for eternity. But some of the young men came only to hear and compare it all with the teaching of their sceptical books, the West's last gift to the East. The poisoned cup of modern thought, with its tincture of babblings profane and vain, and oppositions of science falsely so called, whereof if a soul drink, or a nation, it drinks its own death warrant. Is it not a cruel gift from Christendom to heathendom? Oh for the coming of the King, conquering and to conquer. Truly in vain is salvation hoped for from the churches or from the multitude of missionary societies. Truly in the Lord our God is the salvation of His world. October 6th. I have come to stay with Mary until she goes to Yonago, an important out station needing help. Poor Sarah has broken down and been ordered home, and Mr. and Mrs. Parrott went eastward in summer, so our little band is thinning sadly. Is it not a comfort to lean back upon the fact that God loves His work and His people far better than we can do, and knows all about it too? Only one wants that the camp may be holy, and every fight a Jericho. Just now the curio shops are full of ancient metal mirrors, carved on one side, polished on the other. Here are two I got the other day, both were in use perhaps hundreds of years ago. More and more, as one sees proof of the genius, artistic and otherwise, of this noble Japanese race, one longs that it should be one for the King, a jewel rare and costly redeemed with the precious blood. Some students called to day for spiritual conversation, as they said. They know a little English, and sometimes astonish with startling bits of grandiloquence, gleaned from phrase books and grammars. I learned, as I listened, how trying to the risibilities my Japanese must be to them, and how perfect their courtesy is, for they bow one through one's blunders with unruffled suavity, betraying no emotion. Sometimes, however, their little quotations are not so far out. Said one, when Mary asked him what was left if he took God out of the universe, "A plus and a minus, which equals nothing," was her rejoinder, and his quick wit would appreciate the point his blunder had hit. One of the happiest bits of my work is a weekly Bible reading in English with a Christian student, who reads Genesis much as an English schoolboy would read Ivanhoe. It is most refreshing, and we have lovely times together, I learning far more from him than he can from me. It is evening, and the temple gong is sounding. You know how a church bell tolls when the funeral procession draws near. It is just like that, one note, then silence, another, and again a pause. Intensely sad and solemn, it always seems to me a death knell, with no glad resurrection music ringing through. We are surrounded by idols. This morning in the grey of the dawn, sounds under my window startled me. 3 low claps, then a voice quite close and clear, 3 more claps, then quiet. I got up and looked out, but saw nothing. Afterwards we found that during our absence 2 old shrines in the garden had been furbished up. There were prayer papers, flowers and rice, and some lately offered cakes. So the hand clap under my window explained itself. It was someone worshipping idols even within Christian ground. October 12th. We have got the house photoed for your delectation. The trio standing in the upper window must be taken on faith for Mary, Sarah, and me. This is the house back, its front is to the town. The mulberry field is in full leaf now, likewise the frogs in full croak. They live in the stagnant trenches by the side of the innocent green. October 15th. And now for a leaf from the Book of the Unexpected. When we woke on Saturday morning, it was to find a typhoon whirling round us. All day we lived in a state of "what next?" One moment the large window in my room was blown out. The next, the great pine tree in the garden was torn up by the roots and hurled across the wall. The roar around was deafening, we could hardly hear ourselves speak. They put up the wooden shutters, so we lived in semi-darkness. It was exciting, but nothing to what was coming. That afternoon I sallied forth, clad in weatherproofs, but was drenched in no time, for it poured and poured. The domestics had been in a state of mind about my venturing out at all, but they told of broken bridges, flying housetops, etc., and it was no good trying to keep cooped up in the house when such deeds were a-doing. This morning Matsuye was flooded. Between us and the lake on the one side was nothing now. Road, mulberry field, garden, all a great wide waste of waters. Between us and the street, on the other, was a deep, quickly deepening canal. We seemed to be on the swim, for underneath us was water too. It was raining hard, and still that tempestuous whirl circled round and round. Well, we breakfasted somewhat vaguely, watching the rising of the water meanwhile. When it began to creep over the verandah steps, we took up the mats, and before long were in the thick of a flitting, for we knew that once upon the verandah, the uninvited visitor would take immediate possession of the lower storey, and the only safe place for us and ours would be upstairs. Just then there was a commotion outside. The landlord and his family had been drowned out, and had taken refuge with us. There, too, stood Mr. Buxton. He had waded through 2½ miles of water. It was getting deeper every moment, and we must come at once back with him to Akayama. There he was knee deep just outside the door, and looking tired enough, but he came in. helped stay with the servants and our own poor people who might be frightened. Had we known there would be real danger soon, we couldn't have left them. So off we started. I got my plunge over first, as Mary and M. San were carried through the earlier deep bit. The sooner the rather peculiar sensation of just stepping in is over, the better. Many a piteous sight we saw as we hurried along, little children crying wildly, being carried out of wet rooms into wetter boats, for the very few which were obtainable were in great request. Poor drenched creatures tying up bundles of clothes, or pulling at bits of furniture, trying to save their household gods from immediate drowning. Worst of all, old men and women with ashy faces and drooping heads, half hanging, half being held, upon men's backs as they were rescued from the rapidly rising waters. As I write, I seem to see one old worn form, with long straggling grey hair, all wet and limp. We couldn't bear to look at him, but that one glimpse was heartrending. Everywhere was debris, sticking round the corners, tearing along in the current, telling of ruined homes. God comfort them, poor homeless ones, to night. At last we got to Akayama. Wet, oh so wet. Poor Mary is very tired. She wasn't fit for the walk, and the wetting. It is not an easy thing to keep up with driving wind and rain, and water nearly up to your waist, but she got through it, and I trust will not be the worse for it. And now all day we had been hearing accounts of the greatly increasing floods. They say that if the water rises to the second storey in Yokohama, the house will cave in and everything will be swept away. In such a moment of dire distress it is wicked to think of one's own, but, my baby organ, shall I ever see you again? A few hours ago we heard cries and saw lights moving along the streets, now, even in this high ground, full of water. To stay in was not easy. Mr. Buxton, Jane, and I could not do it. So we got lanterns and waded out, cautiously this time, for coming up I had slipped into one of the open drains which run on both sides of the street, and was up to my neck in a second. We found ourselves in a Venice out-Veniced. Here and there the dark waters gleamed with the broken reflection of a lantern-lit sampan laden with the newly rescued, or a belated fugitive feeling his way along, guarding his precious light under his straw overall. We found many thankful to hear that a welcome awaited them at Akayama should they come. As long as their houses were safe, those who had upper stories wanted to stay there. Those who haven't have been taken to the temple and public schools, where already many hundreds are packed in comfortless security. To add to their sorrows, hardly any food can be obtained, and half Matsuye has gone hungry to bed, if bed it has at all. We don't know how wide reaching this may be. If it is at all extensive, you may hear of it by wire. We are under His wing, so safe always. Now is the time to live our hymns. After all, the waters are in the hollow of His hand. He holdeth them there. When I was a little child I took that quite literally, and used to think being drowned meant going down till we just touched His hand. Friday, October 20th. It seems more like a month than a week since I began this letter, little thinking, as the story books say, what was coming. Now, instead of peace and prosperity, all around us is desolation. The villages for miles and miles have been covered. There is want and sorrow everywhere. Until Monday at midday the rain poured, the tempest raged, and the waters increased. Then came the eagerly watched for rift in the cloud, but soon the heavy leaden grey closed above us again, and that night the flood rose higher. At last came a decided break. Quickly the water fell, till we could see the streets again, and to day, except near Yokohama, where it is still deep, I suppose it is not much over the ankle. But the poor people with their ruined homes, and the sick old people with no shelter, and the hungry little children. A relief fund has been got up, and this afternoon the Christians are going round to the most needy with rice. On Tuesday evening we went out in a sampan. It was so strange to find oneself thus locomotioning among streets and houses and through gardens. It was the dreariest vision of dreariness. We paddled into a once dainty little garden, and up to the home of our head catechist. Then he and his wife plunged knee deep in water and groped their way in. The flood had risen so swiftly and suddenly here, that on Sunday morning they had wakened to find themselves swamped, and only escaped in time. Now they wanted to save a few of the things which previous to their flight they had piled on shelves out of reach of the water. Our poor abode was perfectly desolate. All the lower rooms had been flooded, and of course even yet the garden is a pool. Looking under the lifted boards in the dining room, I saw water touching them still. But we are very thankful the house has been spared. Most of our belongings are uninjured, at least so far as we have had time to see. My baby organ was safe. After giving up one's things, it was lovely to get them all back. When we got home that evening, we found Miss Porter here. She had been away in an outlying village, and literally had to fly for her life. An hour or so after she got out, the road was impassable, and many were drowned. One whole boatful was swamped, and all perished. A girl was seen floating down, her dark hair veiling her white face. Nobody could reach her, and she was dead. We have not heard half yet, for the roads have been blocked, and yesterday no communication could be passed in or out. Oh, how dreadful it is for the thousands who have lost their little all, and for the poor frail old men and women, saddest of the sad. Jane has been away at a little village 4 or 5 miles from here, where we feared there might be need. She has come back much distressed. The whole place was a sea, only the upper rooms were yet livable in. Poor women and children sitting quietly and literally starving, no way of getting food, nobody to bring them away. She heard one old woman say to a little child, "See, look at the foreigner, she will bring us rice." But they didn't beg. It was simple, hopeless misery. She found 23 families in this state. And all round it is the same. We don't know what to do, or how to help one out of every 100. Oh, if we could only telegraph home, I'm sure you would send us something. We are gathering all we can, but it's not half enough. The destitution is a very great deal worse than ever it could be in England, because of course there are so few to do anything. There is just nobody in these scattered hamlets. The Christians are taking it well. Not a word of complaint, only earnest efforts on the part of those who can make them to help others. They are so cheery over it all, or try to be. "For," gasped one as we tugged her through a torrent of mud, "I want to joy and be cheerful, but I can't." And a moment later, after struggling into a groan-tinctured grin, "If look sad, people think Christians not happy in their troubles, so I smile." Which was the most practical attempt at obeying the precept, "Rejoice evermore," I had ever come across. Please don't forget the great ask of this letter. Just now hearts are touched and awed. Open doors are once again around us. Do ask that in His name we may enter in, and that many may through their great sorrow and need find the living Comforter. End of chapter 8. Recording by Expatriate in Bangor, Maine.